I know you're gonna dig this.
This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles, recorded live here at DATV Studios in Dayton, Ohio. And now, my studio guest, a native of Dayton, Nate Alexander, vocalist with the Different Shades of Brown, Motown Records. But before we start with Nate, I want to share with you that this show won a 2017 Philo T. Farnsworth Award once again. Thank you for your listening and watching of us as we continue to move the Funk Museum for Dayton, Ohio. Now, Nate, you are a native Daytonian, and I am so excited to have you here with us to tell us your story about how you see the beginning of funk happening in Dayton, Ohio. Where did you first get started with music?
Actually, I started back. I always said that I thought I could sing before I could talk. So I won't make it long. What I'm saying that at 10 years old, I won my first talent show, going to Garfield Elementary School in Dayton on 5th Street. I won my first talent show. Then I wrote my first song when I was 18. It was a commercial for Metropolitan Clothing Store, and they enjoyed the commercial and asked us, could we make it into a record? So I had to come up with a B-side, and I had all that ready the next day. And I took it to them, so it played on TV. And we turned it into a record, and it played on WING and WONE. We were the first integrated group in Dayton, Ohio in 59.
In 1959.
The first integrated group, a white band and 3 black singers called the Jaguars.
Now, I'm going to show a picture of the Jaguars. Now, this is not with the band, but this is a picture of the singers. You were a young man.
I was.
Well,
Very different look.
very different look. And I think as we go through the pictures that you have given me to display, that we will notice the different looks that also depicts
Right,
the music era as it moved.
right.
So tell me some more about the Jaguars.
Well, the Jaguars actually came, when I think about the doo-wops, the Jaguars actually came a little later, and I wanted to explain that doo-wop was without music. So that came before funk. We stood on the street corners and sung and serenaded the little girls in the neighborhood. And that was the beginning. We used our voices as a bass guitar, or our background voices to harmonize, to make the sound of instruments. So we did that. for like the very beginning of the 60s. And we started doing things with bands. And the bands got to a point, I think, one day where they looked at the groups and they was like they're getting all the attention. So the bands started to putting their thing together and they started to play. And some reason, I used to wonder how can they sing? Because see, bands didn't think singers could play, and singers didn't think a band could sing. So we got to that place to where we started out with, when I was with the Typicals, that was the next group.
Okay. Let's show a picture of Nate and the Typicals. Now, how old were you then, Nate?
22.
22. We don't move from 18 to 22 now. And look at the change in the looks. What difference a 4 years will make.
That's right.
Now, tell me about the Nate and the Typicals.
Some has went as far as to say that's the best group that's ever come out of Dayton. Dayton taught a lot of the groups that came out in the 70s some of the things that they know. Like Lakeside, they were younger and they weren't allowed in bars, so they would sneak in and they would look at our steps because we wanted to be the slickest stepping group out of this area, including the Temptations, because the Temptations were on top then. So we were somebody that all these groups would look at. Tommy Shelby, he's a good friend of mine, a very good friend. But he would look at everything I did, and it would end up with Lakeside. I see him on TV, on one of the shows, and I'm like, those are my steps. And we talk about that right now. And like Tommy, we have even sung together. Tommy, Mike Watts, Mike Wallace, we all came from different groups and put that group together.
So who are all the people on Nate and the Typicals?
That's Michael Wallace at the top left. Larry Hart. Michael Wallace, Michael Watts. And that's me at the bottom.
Okay. And I should have done that with the Jaguars, because who were the three fellows on the Jaguar? Can we go back to the Jaguars so we can identify the three people on the Jaguars? Who are they?
Volley Hart, he's the first one. That's me in the middle, and Jimmy Bogan.
Jimmy Bogan.
Right.
Oh, okay. Now, because I want to make sure we identify all of these folks, because it's very important, because they're a part of this history.
Right. But anyway, back to the way the funk, we're trying to keep the funk in it and updating it from back then. Now, when the bands decided they were going to do these things themselves, they came with the bass line. And see, we all know that James Brown was the beginning, but they would put a bass line in the drums, and a lot of us say that that's the same instrument. It's like you got the foot that's giving you the beat, and the bass giving you those deep notes and things, and that's what made it what they start to call it funk.
From the bass. And the drums. And the drums.
They played the biggest part in making it funky. So that's when they just cut it off and said funk.
Okay. So during this time, what were some of your experiences?
Right
now we're with Nate and the Typicals. So, where did you play in the city of Dayton? Where else did you go? How was the group received?
In Dayton, the group played at the Ebony Club, the Oak Leaf. We actually played at Lakeside Palladium with the Intruders. We opened for the Intruders, and we came out, our show was so tight that when the Intruders came on, Dayton, Ohio booed them. They said, we want the typicals. I didn't think that was funny, but, you know, I'm telling things like they are. We did a show at UD with the Temptations. We traveled with Sam and Dave for a couple of years. We opened for them wherever they went, and we got a chance to be. We didn't perform there, but we got a chance to be backstage at the Apollo Theater when Sam and Dave. Now these were Motown groups back then when Stevie was little, when Marvin was singing Hitchhiking, those type songs, Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers, Major Lance, the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, all of them was on that show. So
those were the Motown reviews, or are we at the Apollo now where they were demonstrating their talents?
Well, the Apollo was the Motown review.
Oh, right.
When we were there with Sam and Dave, and after those couple of years, the typicals got to a place where some of them wanted to be lady chasers. And I used to tell them, I said, look, these are local people. Every city has their own. If you be patient and wait, those days will come. I tried to get them to be patient and just listen to what I was trying to take them to. And it was like two of them just, we went to Philadelphia and we had a meeting with Holland and Dozier. And Holland Dozier, after they heard us, they called me out to the side and said, we don't like everybody in your group, but we'll take you and so, and we'll put two people with them and just create a whole new group. And I was like, loyalty, and I'm like, no, I can't do that with my group. Later on down the line, I'd find out that really messed my possible future up with Philly International. So two of them left, one left and went with Archie Bell, and I'm like, now look at that. I could have done this with the people up there with Bell, and they did this, they went with them, they started the group to go in another direction. So anyway, that was kind of getting to the end of the typicals, and then...
How long did the typicals last?
From 65 to 70, and then the Ohio Players got in a spot where their lead singer, Dale Allen, stole Satch's TV, and Satch fired him. He called me, asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm not doing that right now. He said, well, we need a lead singer. We need somebody to take our place, and we need him up here this weekend. That's when Junie was with them. It was the five originals and Junie. And I went on and got prepared and went and left and went up to Canton, Ohio, where they was at the time. And I was with them for like 2 or 3 months, but I always liked the fancy steps. I liked a show that was flashy, you know, dressing flashy and singing songs that most of these groups wouldn't even try to sing. You know, so after I left there, I was doing nothing, just sitting around the house looking at TV.
So why, excuse me, so why did you only stay there 3 months with Ohio Players? That's all.
I was only staying until they got a replacement for Dale.
Okay.
I didn't like being out front. See, I mean, as sad, crazy as it may seem, I was bashful. So when you got a group, you got all these other distractions that everybody's looking at. They can't just focus on you. So after a couple of months went by, these people came knocking on my door. And I didn't know who they were. I knew one of them, He was their manager. He said, Nate Alexander, we got a proposition for you. We got a group called the Different Shades of Brown. We with Motown. Our lead singer just quit and went in the ministry. How would you like to take his place? I said, now what kind of question is that?
Who came?
They're Different Shades of Brown and their manager.
Okay.
And they were asking me, I've been knowing the manager since the late 50s.
No, what was his name?
Herschel Scott.
Herschel Scott. And who were, at the time, who were the Different Shades of Brown?
The two on that picture, me, the two on that picture, and the fourth one named Marvin Sutton.
Okay.
That's me, the first one. The second one's name is Nate Newsom. Stevie Warfield is the third one.
All right. So tell us, now we're up to, how old are you now with the Shades of Brown?
I was 26.
26, okay. Mm-hmm. So being with the Shades of Brown, being with Motown, tell us about that experience with the Shades of Brown and Motown, and what was your number one hit there?
The first song they did before I got with them was called Label Me Love. Matter of fact, the Jacksons got a version of that song. The Motown was actually, people were leaving. It was getting to a point to where things were chaotic, and they were on the verge of moving to L.A. So we went with them. All the company went to L.A. And it was an experience. Cause see, when we got to L.A., you see just about everybody you knew, every group, anybody that's about anything. One time was out there then. You know, New Birth, the Dramatics, the Spinners, Motown, they rented the Holiday Inn and put all their people in the Holiday Inn. So you run across about anybody. And Marvin and Stevie was two of my favorite people.
Why was that?
Because Stevie's a clown. Stevie likes to talk and create blind jokes, and I'm like, that ain't funny. But he was doing it, so I couldn't say nothing to him. And then Marvin Gaye, he met me coming out with what was called Studio West. There was a Studio East and a Studio West. Marvin was coming, we were leaving, and I happened to be in the front. He walked over in front of me and said, Marvin's my name. I said, who don't know you? All your songs I done sung. So they were the ones that approached you and did different things. And then there's a street called Crenshaw. That's where most of the group sung all the time. There was a club called The Apartments, the Mavericks Flat, and the Total Experience. And that's where you would see anybody. We opened, when we first got out there, we opened for the Whispers. We opened for Chaka Khan. And, you know, we did concerts and stuff like at big colleges at UCLA. And we did one at Long Beach State University in Long Beach, California. So, you know, we did everything that everybody did. It's just that we didn't get the biggest of gigs, and we didn't get a chance to hone our talents in the studios, which we should have been able to do.
And why do you think that happened?
Because our producer, which if you don't have a producer, you will not get in the studio. And our producer, they made me the lead singer. So most everything on our CD was done by me. But the producer eventually got to where he just decided to leave. Then some members of the group left, like Marvin, the one that's not on that picture. he left and came home, and I used to tease him singing "Leaving on a Midnight Train to Georgia." I said, L.A. must have been too much for the man. So we did it with 3. And I think we did just as well because there's a way that you can make harmony like 2 people, and you can take the lead singer and have him do the missing note. It's like having 3, 4 people.
So how long did the Shades of Brown last?
They were with Motown in 71. They picked me up in 72. And when the producer left, you just on the label. You don't really have no dates or anything. We were collecting royalties for the records that we had done, but I wanted to stay. The rest of them wanted to leave because see, Dayton has a different mentality than Springfield people. They're really down to earth, family type people, and I'm like, I want to be out here where my talent is needed in these clubs and in these studios and different things. I want to be there. I can't function out here doing this.
Well, let me ask you a question because I've heard you talk about the producer, and when the producer left, it had a tremendous impact upon the Shades of Brown. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between the duties of a producer versus the manager?
Well, the manager just makes sure that you got places to stay, and he makes sure that you don't have to do nothing but be prepared to go from point A to point B.
Now, which one is responsible for getting your gigs?
That's the manager.
Okay.
The producer is the studio. What he does is all about the studio. He set a time that you go in and record, and whatever hours that's available, you go in and record. The producer sit there with the music, make sure everything is perfect, and then he edit it down. They make sure that everything, that any wrong thing in there, they can go back and erase it. They can call you back in and have you sing a note. If that's all you need is a note, they can call you back and say, this note don't sound right, redo that. So that's what the producers do.
Let me ask you this. What are 3 highlights of your career?
3 highlights. One, I would think, was when we traveled with Sam and Dave. I would say 2 was when the Different Shades of Brown knocked on my door. And I don't know, maybe winning my first talent show at the age of 10. So
At Garfield.
Right.
Yes. Now, what are the 3 most disappointing things in your career?
When I didn't go with Philly International, when they said we'll take 2 of y'all and let the other ones go, that's one of the most disappointing because I don't know what I would have been doing with them. See, Philly International had the OJs, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and some groups that was doing things. So I could have been a part of that little clique. It wouldn't have been any different than Motown to me. And Motown was the biggest company in the world at that time. So it was like a lot of groups. I didn't get to be heard on the radio like I would have liked to have been heard, but Motown is legendary. And like me, I always felt like I had perfect pitch for music, for voices. I could do things that a lot of people couldn't do. I could create harmonies that a lot of people couldn't. So I don't think, I didn't say a third one. I can't think of what actually, I said not going to Philly International, Sam and Dave. Oh, I did. When I was 10.
Oh, that was the positive.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell me, how important do you think that the Funk Music Hall of Fame is?
I think it's very necessary. I mean, that's the type of music that kind of, to me, kind of pushed rap down some. You know, because rap was running everything, and a lot of people like me, I didn't like rap. So when I first heard anything that sounded funky, I was like, man, when you're in the studio, they turn music up real loud. When you in there and you went in the recording booth and you come out and listen to the playback, it's like, it's so loud. And see, the louder you play music, the better it sounds. I don't know how many people really know that, but the better it sounds when it's real loud, because it's almost like you can taste every note. You can just grab everything like it's right there.
So the Funk Music Hall of Fame is important to you. Why is it important to you?
It should be important to everybody.
Good.
You know, I mean, I consider myself a part of funk. I don't play them instruments. I'm not with one of the funk groups, but funk came from where I was before they came.
I think you mentioned to me that the late Keith Wilder used to do what with you?
He was our MC.
MC?
He brought us on stage, the different shades of brown.
Oh, really?
Before he went to over in Germany with his brother, he was with us, and he would sing like his little 2 or 3 songs, and then he would introduce us. So that's why I'm saying the ones that actually did things, I used to always say they had to come through my school. You know, I would tell, like you might hear somebody that know me well, like I was with Floyd Weatherspoon yesterday, and he was telling me that he was on here, Touch, last year. And I'm saying all these groups and things, I used to play with their older brothers and things like that. You know, like Floyd had a set of twin brothers named Hillard and Fred. They were older than me, and I used to sing with them. You know, I was in elementary school at Westwood, and they were going to Roth or Dunbar, but they were older than me, and I sung with them.
You know, Nate, your story has been so interesting to me, and one of the things that I would like for you to do for me, could you sing me a couple of bars from one of your songs that made you so ingrating to people?
And it'll be on there when you hear it.
Yeah, okay.
A song we did at Motown called "Then Again Maybe."
Then again, maybe. All right, I'm all ears.
It's like, we're having problems with our love affair, and sometimes it seems that neither of us care. But to myself I must confess, it's just your lack of thoughtfulness. Just more take than give, I guess. But maybe it was meant to be. But then again, maybe it's not.
All right, thank you. I feel serenaded. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your story from a different perspective that we've heard regarding the funk music.
Right.
And I think that, you know, to our viewers, that the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center is so important for our community. And that we also need to make sure that if our story is not told, it won't be told. And it all depends upon you on helping us bring this dream into reality. This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Until the next time, keep it funky. The love that made me strong has died. That man.
We're having problems with our love affair, and sometimes it's only a week that I haven't been with you, but in those 7 days I've decided that we were through.